Hello, my name is Kinlock and I love musical theatre, and so I'm here to talk about that today. And I hear you saying, why don't you talk about that with your friends? That's what friends are for. But then I'd have to listen to my friends. And I'm not interested in hearing their opinions. I just want to talk about mine for 20 minutes. So thank you for coming here for that. Okay, last night I saw Cruel Intentions the musical, and today I've had 90s songs in my head all day, which is fantastic. I do like a bit of 90s music. I mean, who doesn't? Oh, people who weren't born then? Well, you're missing out, okay? But the 90s was very formative for me. You can blame the 90s for who I am. Leave my parents out of it. It's not their fault. It's the 90s. So that's a big draw card for Cruel Intentions the musical. It's billing itself now as the 90s musical. And I don't think it did that last time it was here. So it was here in Melbourne last year. And I remember thinking, Cruel Intentions, the musical. Sounds tacky. Who'd want to see that? And then it came back this year and I heard Cruel Intentions, the 90s musical. Sounds tacky. I can't wait. So their new marketing works on me. If it is new, maybe I just didn't notice last time. I think it's new though. Yeah, so I went in excited, and I think that was the right attitude to have. I'm glad I waited. And I was not disappointed on the whole. Like, the song selection is so good for anyone who loves 90s music. Think I Like Sex and Candy, and like Bittersweet Symphony, and On Sunday Morning, you know, and These Foolish Games. Oh, so many great hits, and some of them are less hitty, but still really good songs. No, but just most of them are hits. In fact, yeah, really. But yeah, there's like Backstreet Boys in there, and some Britney, some TLC, yes. So it's just fun. It certainly doesn't take itself seriously. So as an audience member, you never feel like you have to. You can just enjoy the things you're enjoying, and if there's bits you don't enjoy, you let them wash over you. Okay, so I did my homework. I made sure I watched the film before I went to see this for a couple of reasons. I figured it was going to play heavily on that nostalgia for the film, and I was not wrong. I also suspected it might be difficult to keep up with the story and follow it if the film wasn't something you were quite familiar with. And I think that I might have, had too low expectations on that front. I think that the stage version did an absolutely adequate job of telling the story, and anyone who was unfamiliar still could have followed the story. But having said that, it is a kind of complicated story, and the film probably, gets you used to that complication, but sort of makes sense of it. Whereas if it was your first time being exposed to that story, you might be like, why did it have to go in that direction? But by sort of seeing the film play out the way it does, you're sort of like, oh, okay, and it's based on this, classic old French story. And so you're like, okay, well, it's just adapting something, and that's the way the story is. It just is. And so when you see it on stage, you sort of have to know that that's just the way the story is. If you were writing it now from scratch, you'd probably not do it quite like that, but yeah, this is what we have. On that note, when I saw the film, I was like observing a few things here and there that hadn't aged well, and I was like, okay, I guess they'll change that for the stage version. Seems like a great opportunity to, have fewer gay jokes. And I was surprised to find that they hadn't changed those things. So they just like stuck out and were a bit odd. So like there were some jokes that you just wouldn't say now. And so that meant that people weren't really laughing. And like it's one thing on film because you've kind of got to just like trust your instincts and the audience isn't going to see it till much later. But on stage, when you're developing something for stage and you try out a joke and the audience doesn't respond, you've got the opportunity to change the joke or just like get rid of it or whatever. And so I was a bit disappointed that the script hadn't seen a few updates. In fact, the script hadn't really changed. I would have liked some additional jokes and to get rid of some of the ones that didn't land. And yeah, it also sort of speaks to this weird thing about the tone of the piece. Like the tone of the film shifts around a bit, and I found that quite hard to get used to. I was like, this film doesn't really know whether it's trying to be a romance or comedy, and if it's a comedy, is it like a screwball comedy or is it satirical? It sort of plays around in a lot of different genres and just sort of tries to straddle them all, but not evenly. It's sort of just like, I'll do this for a while, then this for a while, then this for a while. Anyway, it still kind of works. People still love it because it's got this overarching theme of being like very sexy and kind of just cool. Just it oozes confidence and cool and sex. And so that is the through line. Similar kind of thing on stage. That ends up being the through line. And then there's like still these weird clunky bits that like have a mismatched tone. And then on top of that, you've got the mismatched tone of it's a musical now, so we're going to sing every now and then. You think that that might have kind of brought together a few of these other elements or replaced them, but instead they're all still just there and it's a bit of a jumble, but it matters less because when they're just breaking into songs that aren't always that germane, you just can't take it too seriously. So this leads me to like the music. Why is it there? So a lot of the songs that are in the stage version are songs that are in the soundtrack of the film. And, so they were really popular and really good songs. And the soundtrack to Cruel Intentions is worth listening to. And so songs that might have just been in the background of a scene. And so I guess if you're really nostalgic and have seen the film a lot, then you might like relate that song to that scene. And so in the stage version, they will start singing that song in that scene. But if you're looking at it with fresh eyes and fresh ears, I guess, then you wouldn't necessarily always get the relationship between the song and the scene. It's just sort of like, this is a bit of a weird match. And they kind of do this thing a lot where they're like, well, we need to have like a love duet between these two people. So, I mean, if they're both singing the same song and they're both acting like in lovey type ways, then it's a love duet. And it's like, yeah, but what you're singing about doesn't like, have you, did you, I mean, there are lyrics. The example that comes to mind is a song that is sung between the Selma Blair character and the music teacher that she's sort of interested in. And they have this sort of flirtatious song where they're chasing each other around the couch and stuff. And it's the actions that they're doing that really sell what they're trying to say with the song, because it's not the lyrics. The song they're singing is Breakfast at Tiffany's, and it's like, I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? She said, I think I remember the film. And what it's supposed to be is like, I said, I read the book and I liked it. And so it's got like a couple, and one of them's seen the film and one of them's read the book, and they think they are liking the same thing, but they're liking different things because the book and the film are quite different. That's what the song is about. But the stage version, they actually changed the lyrics. So instead of him talking about the book, he's just like, oh, we both quite liked it. And so they actually are both talking about the film. And it's like, well, wait, why does this song exist if you've just completely subverted the entire meaning of the song? So the song shouldn't even exist now. And why did you suddenly start singing about Breakfast at Tiffany's? Like, it's such an easy kind of fix. You'd think that when you've got this line, I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? You think that earlier in the scene, they could have said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? And it's like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Oh yeah, Moon River. I don't know. And have a conversation. And then later they can reference it and say, I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? I mean, you know, like, it seems obvious, but like there was such a reluctance to change anything about the script that they didn't do that. And so instead they tell the story that's happening during the song through the physicalization of the song. And that leads to some great physical moments, and we never get bored at the staging. There's always something really cool and interesting to look at, but dramatically what's happening doesn't always line up with the lyrics of the song. So another outcome of this reluctance to change anything about the script, they just sort of use the script from the film. And like, I get it, because there's some really iconic lines and they want to pay homage to that and just cash in on the nostalgia and stuff. There are some good lines. Yeah, they should be there. But there are things that you can do on film that you can't do on stage. And so some of those things really needed to be changed. And some of them were tweaked a little bit here and there. Like, you know, it's easier in a on screen to sort of have a sex scene and then you just sort of like fade to black, or you cut to something else and you come back and it's done. It's hard to kind of do that sort of editing on stage, so it's like the sex scenes they'll sort of go off stage. And I'm thinking of one in particular where it's like on screen they're in bed afterwards talking, and he's like, shh, this is, you know, this is quiet time afterwards, and she's all like chatty and blah 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 blah. And so the way they sort of get around that is that it's like they go off stage and that happens, then he comes out of the bedroom and is just wanting to like sit on the couch and read a book, and she comes over to the couch and is like all like talking, and so you can get the same effect, you can still have the same script, but they just change the staging so it makes a bit more sense for stage. And that's great. That's a good example of when it works and you can keep the same script but just like tweak the staging. But an example of when it didn't work is, this will be a spoiler, but you know, you've had like 24 years to see this film, so it's towards the end, a big thing happens which leads to somebody getting quite hurt. So there's a car going along and then it hits the person who like flies and lands. And that is really hard to replicate on stage. I'm not saying it can't be done, but the sorts of stage effects and stuff that you would need to do that would be really out of place in the way that this is staged. And so it was always going to be a bit of a tall order. And the solution they came up with was pretty much just like, oh, we're going to have some like honking horn sounds so you know there's a car coming. And then black. And then while the stage is black, you just sort of hear, splat. Oh, I'm sore. Oh no, I love you. I love you too. And then the lights come up and it's a new scene. It's like, really, girl? That's like a really, it's just unimaginative, but also it cheats the audience of this really dramatic moment. They should have just, I get that it's hard to do a car crash on stage, but like, it doesn't have to be a car crash. You know, we're adapting this from a French story that was written in like the 1700s or whatever. It wasn't a car crash in that. I don't actually know what it was. It was probably someone being poisoned or something. I don't know. It was probably a sword fight, come think of like the context. Yeah, so like there just kind of could have been something else. It could have been a violent thing between two guys and someone accidentally falls and hits their head, or like, you know, it sets off a medical condition that has been foreshadowed earlier or something, you know, what if he's asthmatic, or what if he's allergic to bees? You know, Thomas J can't see without his glasses. So I'm just saying, trying to replicate a car crash on stage is difficult, and choosing to show it by not showing it, just going to black and having like, oh, that hurt. It's like, it kind of was awkward. Okay, so that covers most of what I wanted to say about like the script and the adaptation and the music. So it must be time to talk about the cast. I'm gonna start with the cast member I had the most trouble with, because then it's only up from there, and it's the one who played the Reese Witherspoon character, because this is how we know these characters. It's like which actress played them in the film, and like, so it's the Reese Witherspoon one, who's sort of this innocent blonde kind of, you know, virginal, well, literally a virgin. Like she, you know, wants to save herself for marriage, and is just kind of like, she's the headmaster's daughter, and so it's very prim and proper and just correct. And I think part of the problem that I had at first was like, oh, I don't think these songs are quite right for her character. Like her initial song, her like entrance music is like, I'm just a girl, I'd rather not be, what I've succumbed to is making me numb. And it's just like, I don't really get this song for this character, because it just evokes the music video with Gwen Stefani being all defiant and punky, and that's not who this character is. And you could do something else with it, but they sort of didn't, so that's sort of what you're left with. And yeah, it's partly that, but so I was willing to kind of be like, oh well, maybe she'll sing other songs better, but she kind of didn't, because every time she went to sing, she would do this sliding, scooping thing, and oh, so annoying. Like she sings Foolish Games by Jewel, and it's like, these foolish games are breaking my heart. And it's like, it's just, do you think you're riffing? Because that's not riffing. You're just sliding and slowing down the song because the notes take longer. So that was really annoying. She had a great voice. Like, she could sing. She was just trying to, like, maybe put her own stamp on the music, and in doing so was, like, not honoring the notes that made that song a hit. You've got to honor the notes that we like about the thing, you know? So then the other two, like, standout characters, actors, cast members, because the whole cast was pretty great, and there were probably like 12 people in it. It's not a big cast. It was also not a big stage, you know, so it was fine. It was nicely done. I like something that's sort of concise. You don't always need 30 chorus members. Nothing wrong with 30 chorus members, but you don't always need it. And so, yes, I liked the size of the cast and stuff, and the cast was generally very strong, and they mostly just did a really good job of, like, putting their own stamp on each character. Like, that's the Selma Blair character, but she's not imitating Selma Blair. She's very much doing her own thing with that character. And the Joshua Jackson character was very much doing his own thing with that. He was really funny and a bit of a crowd favorite. But you've got to talk about the two leads who play the stepsister and stepbrother, who have this, you know, chemistry, and it's, I mean, they're not really related, so maybe it's not inappropriate, but it still feels inappropriate. And, you know, they're like teenagers, so watching that. It feels inappropriate. It just does sometimes, but that's, you know, part of the allure of this piece, right? It's like, ooh, the forbidden. And yeah, so anyway, so that's Ryan Philippe. I was gonna try and use the character names and I couldn't do it. So Ryan Philippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar. So the two actors who play those roles are both very, very, very commanding performers, both triple threats. They have their moments to move well, to dance, to sing like the bejesus out of the music, and to act and show their vulnerability. And particularly the Ryan Philippe character, he has to connect with a lot of different cast members, like everyone really, and he just does that so naturally, and he's got like these very real relationships going on with different people, and wow, the actor's name is Drew Weston. I do actually know this one, but he is great. Like, he has the sort of charisma and charm and talent to back it up that you can really like hang an entire show from his shoulders, and he'll carry it. Like, he's just really, really good, and really enjoyed everything about him. I had a bit of a moment at the start going, ooh, he's a very manly man. It's a very different take on the character, and he does look about 20 years too old for this character, but after about 5 minutes, I was like, oh no, I get it. He's the right choice, so it's fine. He just isn't really going to be able to play any other teenage roles anytime soon / ever. So yeah, he's at that end of the I can still pass as young spectrum. We've all been there, right? I mean, I have. Maybe you haven't. I don't know. And then there's the female person who plays the Sarah Michelle Gellar character, and her voice is killer. Oh, like such control, and just she just totally owns the material. She gets some really like rocky, just kind of big belty music, and she's always just so like grounded and enjoying it, and the voice just like flows, and it's, you know, she's competing with a band, but it's somehow like bigger than all of it, and it's great. Loved her singing. And then like 3/4 of the way through, she suddenly does this contemporary dance number whilst belting out Sunday Morning by No Doubt. And I was just like, you can do this, and you're waiting till now to show that off. Not her choice, I get it, but still, just like, wow, it blew my mind. The only reason I don't quite put her in the same category as the Ryan Philippe Drew Weston guy is she just had this really weird moment. Like, it's kind of like the big climactic point of the show, or it's where the climax should be, because it's where it is in most musicals. But then she just kind of has this weird unearned meltdown, sort of. It's like a Rose's Turn or like a Witch's Lament, kind of, Mama, oh, are you there? Or like, Papa, can you hear me? Like, just kind of like moment. And I didn't know what was happening, so it's hard to describe. But musically, what was happening was like a mega mix, like a medley of songs that she had sung earlier. So it's like a mega mix reprise. But you know how I was saying earlier that like the songs often told their story through the action that was happening on stage rather than the actual literal lyrics that you're hearing. And so you didn't really gather the meaning of what they're singing about from the lyrics. But then when she's like just reprising little bits from songs here and there, all you've got is the lyrics. And then it was just like a bit from this and a bit from that, and it was like a real mishmash, and I couldn't make head or tail of it. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what her character was supposedly going through at that time. Narratively, I was just like, is there a scene I've forgotten about? Like, I don't, it was just the weirdest thing. And for like 3 minutes, I was just completely taken out of the whole thing going, huh? Huh? When's the show gonna start again? What? And then, so I shouldn't blame that actor for that, but I do think maybe someone else could have made a bit more sense of the material, so that the audience still knew what was going on. That was just a real black mark, and just to this moment. Now I'm thinking about it again, and I'm just like, I must be able to figure this out. The moment has passed. I don't think I'm going to figure it out. So, we'll never know. Okay, so I don't think I had anything else I wanted to say. I mean, I've spoken for like 26 minutes. Surely that's enough. Except you want to hear more, don't you? Do you want to hear more? Well, join me for my secret bonus episode for subscribers only. I don't do that. No, I'm not going to have a subscribers only Patreon thing or anything. So, toodaloo, see you in the real world.